Nobody would listen to his speeches. They were awful. They were full of facts and figures he had dug up about running the state. Yeah, I said, I heard the speech, but they don't give a damn about that. Hell, make him cry, make him laugh, make him think you're their weak, erring pal, make him think you're God Almighty, or make him mad, even mad at you. Just stir him up, it doesn't matter how or why, and they'll love you and come back for more. They aren't alive, most of them, and haven't been alive in 20 years. So it's up to you to give him something to stir him up and make him feel alive again. Tell him anything. But for sweet Jesus' sake, don't try to improve their minds. That is an excerpt from what has recently become one of my new favorite novels, All the King's Men by author Robert Penn Warren. All the King's Men is a fairly fictional retelling of a governor from Louisiana who also became a senator named Huey Long. Huey Long in this novel is named Willie Stark, and though it's pretty loose, Robert Penn Warren was really inspired by the politics of Huey Long that he was seeing at the time and the effects of him. The novel is told from the point of view of a character named Jack Burden, who works for the fictional governor, Willie Stark, and the story is really more Jack's than it is Willie's. The best novel I can compare it to, honestly, is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, which is narrated by Nick Carraway about, well, The Great Gatsby, and All the King's Men is narrated by Jack Burden about Willie Stark. Both Carraway and Jack Burden are extremely sad and even potentially unreliable narrators, and yet they're the only person that we have to trust to tell us the important events of the novel. This is also why I feel All the King's Men is less about politics than about our relationship to those politics. We are told that Willie Stark is destroying the state constitution, that he's a liar, that he's corrupt, that he's bad, and that he's going to ruin this state with his politics, and yet most of the actual legislative maneuvering and cheating and lying that Stark does are not really conveyed to us by Jack Burden because he just doesn't see them as important. Instead, we're meant to see the corruption of the government through specifically Willie Stark himself and the way that he treats other people. And while there is some minor politicking and moving around of money, that's not really the point of the book. Rather, we, instead of getting Jack's thoughts on the politics, we get Jack's thoughts on the people behind the politics, specifically himself and Willie Stark. For both Jack Burden and Nick Carraway, these are men who exist primarily defined by their relationship to another man. For Jack Burden, it's his relationship to Willie Stark, and for Nick Carraway, it's his relationship to Jay Gatsby. Jay Gatsby and Willie Stark both become kind of these symbols of masculinity and achievement that neither of the narrators can ever achieve. They both do things that neither of the narrators are actually able to. Both books turn politics and power into a specifically masculine affair because, well, at this time especially, politics and power were exclusively masculine affairs, and yet, for all of their power, wealth, and schmoozing, neither Jay Gatsby nor Willie Stark get what they want by the end, and therefore, neither do Nick and Jack. Nick and Jack both live beyond the lives of their friends and mentors, with both Jay Gatsby and Willie Stark being gunned down by men who they have personally wronged through their relationship with women. Both Nick and Jack think of themselves as good, or at least trying to be good, in a world which is increasingly bad. In the end, both novels question the purpose or ability of being good in a bad world. This actually is something that led to All the King's Men being banned in Texas high school in 1974 for depicting a depressing view of life and immoral situations. Both novels have extremely similar conclusions. Allow me to read these to you so that you can see what I'm talking about here. And as I sat there brooding on the old, unknown world, I thought of Gatsby's wonder when he first picked out the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. He had come a long way to this blue lawn, and his dream must have seemed so close that he could hardly fail to grasp it. He did not know that it was already behind him, somewhere back in that vast obscurity beyond the city, where the dark fields of the Republic rolled on under the night. Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow we'll run faster, stretch out our arms farther, and one fine morning. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. And now, if you would humor me, the final passage from All the King's Men. So by the summer of this year, 1939, we shall have left Burden's Landing. We shall come back, no doubt, to walk down the row and watch young people on the tennis courts by the clump of mimosas, and walk down the beach by the bay, where the diving floats lift gently in the sun, and on out to the pine grove, where the needles thick on the ground will deaden the footfall, so that we shall move among trees as soundlessly as smoke. But that will be a long time from now, and soon now we shall go out of the house and go into the convulsion of the world, and out of history into history, and the awful responsibility of time. Both novels end with men giving up their desire to be good or achieve something good or new in the world. At least that's how I kind of see it when comparing the two. And so these raise the question of what good is it to be good if everything around you is so bad? One of my favorite scenes from All the King's Men comes towards the end when Jack Burton is in the hospital with Willie Stark after Willie Stark has been shot and shortly before he dies. Willie Stark says to Jack, "It might have all been different, Jack. You gotta believe that." And Jack thinks about this at the end, and it does make me think. Could it have been different for Stark? For Jack? Could it have been different for Gatsby? I say yes, but the authors, in a way, seem to be saying no. Both stories see men being beaten down by history as a result of trying to stand up to history. So what then can we apply from that to politics? Or what is Robert Penn Warren trying to tell us about politics? I think first to answer that, we have to examine what kind of a figure Stark is. And being based on Huey Long, Willie Stark is a purely populist figure who, while lying and cheating and womanizing, does actually gain results for the poor people of the state. Doesn't all boil down to this? If the government of this state for quite a long time back had been doing anything for the folks in it, would Stark have been able to get out there with his bare hands and bust the boys? And would he be having to make so many shortcuts to get something done to make up for the time lost all these years and not getting anything done? I love this quote because it really highlights what makes Willie Stark successful to the other characters in the novel and also Huey Long in the real world. People in the 1930s, and now in the 2020s, believe the government is slow, useless, and inefficient. And as I've said before, yes, government can be slow and inefficient. Look at the DMV, for example. But most people don't recognize how the government actually is efficient, or that when it is slow on purpose so as to prevent figures like Huey Long, or, say, another potential dictator, from absolutely busting down the government and just doing whatever the hell they want with it. In other words, we have checks and balances for a reason. And yet, this conception of government as slow and stupid and wasteful and useless is exactly why something like Doge, being run by Elon Musk, is so popular right now. Doge, unlike Willie Stark, has not delivered results or benefits, especially to poor people, but just inflicts harm, specifically to poor people. Populist candidates appeal to popular ideas, or as the Google definition here says, a person, especially a politician, who strives to appeal to ordinary people who feel that their concerns are disregarded by established elite groups. Populists, unlike demagogues, are not inherently bad because populists do not have to define like a minority group as an enemy. Instead, populists will oftentimes campaign against large companies or businesses as an enemy, which is not the same as demagoguery because, hey, a large business can protect itself even though it shouldn't have to because a business is an entity, not a person, and therefore should not have the same rights. A real, genuine populist provides people with resources and services. They don't just slash those services in the name of hypothetically giving those people back more money. Willie Stark is a populist who does things like build roads, bridges, and hospitals. Hell, even a racist guy like George Wallace was a massive populist because he realized that education was important for the poor working class and built schools for them. But because Alabama was segregated, for every school that George Wallace had to build for poor white people, he also had to build for poor black people. So accidentally, George Wallace kind of almost did the right thing through his populism. Which brings me now, of course, to our modern moment with characters not just like Elon Musk, but like Donald Trump. Trump, despite being a millionaire, tries appealing to populist ideas in a harsh way, which people like. It's very similar to the old maxim that everybody agrees with communism until you say the word. Huey Long and Franklin Delano Roosevelt were pretty popular populist figures, just like Willie Stark in the novel, and populist ideas are still popular. The Democratic Party, for example, is far more populist than the Republican Party, yet they get smeared as socialist, even though most Democratic policies, such as raising the minimum wage or paid time off, are popular. People like those policies and will vote for them on ballot amendments and then yet still shoot down Democratic candidates because, while Democratic policies are popular, Democratic candidates are not. Like Willie Stark, Trump is a brash figure who claims to stick up for the worker, and yet he does so while absolutely gutting programs that are set in place to stand up for the worker, such as unions, Medicare, Medicaid, overtime pay, the Affordable Care Act, the recently passed infrastructure bill, national parks, VA benefits, environmental protections, and taxes on big business. Those are all things which exist to protect powerless people that don't make a lot of money, and yet Trump and Doge have been exclusively attacking them over the past few months. Just like people in All the King's Men venerate and idolize Stark, people idolize and venerate Trump because of the way that he talks to them and because he seems somewhat accessible and he appeals to them using basic language and common terms and, of course, demagoguery. A lot of Trump's success also comes from the fact that people in the United States idolize wealth and think that Donald Trump is the ideal wealthy person and that if they work hard or if they keep people like Donald Trump in power, they too will eventually become wealthy. I mean, for example, just look at Trump's recently posted AI video about what he's going to do to Gaza once he's put in charge of it. It's literally raining money and everything is turned gold. This is very similar to the Huey Long and Willie Stark slogan of "Every man a king," which to me sounds an awful lot like communism. But in the United States, remember, and especially among Republican Trump supporters, we don't like communism. We don't even like socialism. Hi, quick note for me here in the editing bay. I know I look like kind of the average Redditor right now, but I just want to throw out that, to be clear, this every man a king thing is not actually communist. Typically under like a truly communist regime, which I'm not advocating for, you would actually have no man as a king and dissolution of the state, but wealth is equally distributed so that there is no need for a king. My point is just here that this is really advocating for a share the wealth kind of message, which on its surface is very similar to that of communism or even socialism, which is ironic given the status of how the United States typically views communism and socialism. Okay, sorry, thank you. Back to the real video. This brings me back to the idea that people don't actually really care what happens to the government, whether it's good or bad. Donald Trump won the 2024 election because people just want something to happen to the government, regardless if it's good or bad. Think back to the quote I opened this video with from All the King's Men. Jack Burton says of Willie Stark that nobody would listen to his speeches. They were awful, they were full of facts and figures he had dug up about running the state. Jack Burton then tries to explain to Willie Stark that he heard the speech, but they don't give a damn about that. Hell, make him cry, make him laugh, and make him think you're their weak erring pal. Make him think you're God Almighty. Or make him mad, even mad at you. Just stir him up, it doesn't matter how or why, and they'll love you and come back for more. They aren't alive, most of them, and haven't been alive in 20 years, so it's up to you to give them something to stir him up and make him feel alive again. Tell them anything, but for sweet Jesus' sake, don't try to improve their minds. Jack Burton points out that the poor, sad people of Louisiana are not looking for somebody to improve their minds or teach them something. They want their current feelings of sadness and anger and betrayal to be validated. And as long as their feelings and rage are validated, the people of Louisiana don't really care about Huey Long's lack of morality either. I think this is a really timely message because all of our good guy candidates that we've had, especially on the Democratic side, have failed. Donald Trump is the complete opposite. 34 felony convictions, a long history of sexual assault and rape being levied against him, a slew of other morally compromising issues, and yet nobody gives a shit. He still won the election, and people will downplay any of those potential failings as either fake or relatable and okay. The lesson here? At this point in time and in the 1930s, nobody actually cares or gives a shit about morality in politics, and anybody who says otherwise, especially anybody who voted for Donald Trump, is just a fucking liar. The time for morality and caring what people think and taking the high road is far gone. The system is held together with rules and agreements that have failed. People wanted somebody who will shake things up, and that is what gave us Donald Trump, just like that is what gave the characters in the novel Willie Stark. Therefore, Democrats are going to continue to lose unless they do populism for real. Stark was a populist for real. So if you're a Democrat or you're somebody who wants Democrats to win, then I feel what the Democrats need to do is to stop chasing the right or the center, but go left and be aggressive and populist about it, learning from, well, figures like Willie Stark, even though maybe they're not the best. Trump is a great messenger. He makes things up, he speaks plainly, and makes people feel something, just like Robert Penn Warren's outlines Willie Stark does. Democrats talk about facts and figures that nobody cares about, even though they should. For example, I remember this summer when Kamala Harris won the nomination, I listened to an interview with her from the New York Times, and I was impressed because she sounded not like a politician, but like a professor or an academic. And in hindsight, I should have recognized that that was a huge red flag that she was going to lose the election, because people do not want an academic. They don't want somebody who talks intelligent. They want somebody who speaks plainly and tells them what they want to hear. I think another great example of this is the recent assassination of the CEO, health executive, by Luigi Mangione. Luigi proves that people want someone who will get something done, even if they don't do it the right way, such as Willie Stark would have done. And honestly, one of the biggest lessons of All the King's Men to me, and maybe Robert Penn Warren would not be happy about this, but it's something that I feel is very relevant to our modern political climate, is that people want a smart, aggressive, charming populist, but not a demagogue on the left who can do populism for real, not just lie about doing populism in order to enrich their own pockets. Many politicians are bad guys lying about being good guys. And honestly, I feel like maybe the time has come for a good guy who's willing to lie about being a bad guy just to get some shit done. Willie Stark starts off as a good guy. He does become a bad guy, but when it comes to actually getting shit done, he doesn't care. He wants to build a hospital and the characters protest there's not enough money or resource, whatever, and Willie Stark says, I don't care, make it happen. It's good for the state, so make it happen. Now, of course, that is very bad when you have somebody who is doing things which are bad for the state and just makes it happen. And really, I can summarize my entire lesson from All the King's Men by simply saying that we need a politician who is willing to say fuck on national TV. I don't care. I feel the time for decorum is done, and then if you get an actual hardcore populist who's going to invest in things like infrastructure and hospitals and education and jobs and all the other things that are actually important, and they say fuck on TV, you have immediately won all of the leftists over. You've won the young people over, because the time for decorum is gone. It has been gone for at least a decade. There was a quote from Joe Biden many years ago, 5 years ago now, that I actually really liked. And for as much as people dog on Joe Biden and say he's a milquetoast loser, or of course a radical left socialist, which he's not, it'd be nice if he were, Joe Biden had a wonderful quote that I think about often. This was after the January 6th insurrection, when he said,
"The words of a president matter, no matter how good or bad that president is. At their best, the words of a president can inspire. At their worst, they can incite."
That meant a lot to me at the time, but 5 years later, I feel that the time for inspiration, honestly, again, is gone. I think that if you're going to inspire people, at this point, you need to inspire them with anger, and with some righteous anger as well, towards the people that actually deserve it. The rich ruling class that are currently gutting the entire country and the systems of checks and balances that keep us safe. These are the same villains that Huey Long took on in the 1930s, the same villains that Willie Stark took on in All the King's Men, and they're the same villains that we need to take on now. So what we need is a figure on the left who is willing to inspire by capitalizing on that anger and directing it into something positive, such as genuine populism, rather than violent, minority-targeted demagoguery. Voters want to feel like they're in on the joke, even if they're not. They don't want to learn anything new. They want to be told that they already know everything and that their feelings are valid because of it. Nobody is going to be successful in American politics by trying to change voters' hearts and minds about anything. The voters need to be lied to by being told they're already right, that their hearts and minds are already in the right place. There's a great novel from Greg Iles which came out last year called Southern Man, which covers this topic extensively if anybody is interested. So in conclusion, I don't believe that the time for good men is gone. I don't think the time will ever be gone, but I think that the time for the image of the good man is gone. I think that the time for acting like a good man is gone. I think that Willie Stark reminded me that people really do like somebody who's willing to get something done. But the warning of Willie Stark is to not become what Willie Stark does, which is somebody who compromises all of their individual moral principles and ends up hurting the people around them by chasing desires which are actually unattainable. Rather, we should chase things which are attainable and good for everybody. So really, in short, what can we learn from All the King's Men? Well, to me, it's exactly what Willie Stark says to Jack Burton. It's that it might have all been different, and that if we do things right this time, maybe it still can be.